All right, welcome along to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. Raf Diallo here. We're on RT.ie, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. We'll chat League of Ireland and Champions League later on with Keith Treacy and Richie Towell, but today we'll be starting off with the Republic of Ireland Women's Nations League assignment against Greece. Chapter 1 took place on Friday when the girls in green got their campaign back on course with a 4-0 win in Crete. And on Tuesday evening, the second match of the window will take place at Tallaght Stadium with live coverage across TV, radio, and online here on RTE, and more details on that later. So I'm joined by Shelbourne midfielder and four-time international cap Rachel Graham and my colleague Anthony Pyne. I hope you're all keeping well.
Doing well, Raf. Hope you are too.
Yeah, not too bad now. Now, as I said, it was a 4-0 win in Crete on Friday, and it all hinged on what happened after half-time. So Marissa Shiva, super sub 4 minutes after coming on, broke the deadlock. Then Kira Carusa doubled the lead. Jessie Stapleton, player of the match performance, scored her second international goal with a header, and then Amber Barrett with a good run and finish as well to finish it off. But obviously, what preceded it was Katie McCabe couldn't start with a calf strain, and it meant it was a very intriguing formation that we were looking at. And Rachel, when you saw the starting 11, once it was named and once it was clear that Katie McCabe couldn't start, what did you make of it?
I think, look, it probably is the team you would have went with. Not having Katie available, you would have thought that the team that was out would have had no issues against Greece. I think the first half there probably was, they probably put a lot of pressure on themselves after how the last game had went. So I think there was a bit of that in it as well. I think that with the Tyler Towell and Russia Littlejohn, it was probably too maybe defensive in midfield. They were both like to play that kind of defensive role. So that was obviously changed at half time. But I think we kind of, created our own problems in the first half. We kind of played to suit them. It was a bit slow. We didn't really stretch them. And then we seen at half time when Shiva came on, she played that role where she was more advanced. She was stretching them, pulling them out, making runs in behind, which is what you need to do when a team is set up so rigidly against us. But look, I think it was a lot of nerves. It was just about getting the result on the day. First half obviously showed that there was a lot of pressure on them and they were probably playing with that pressure. But second half then, once you get the first goal in them kind of games, it's, you feel the weight coming off you and you play a lot more free. So look, big changes at half time. Obviously Kate and Shiva made a big difference. But yeah, I think the first half probably, not the greatest, but also when you're playing like that, you just don't concede, get to half time and regroup, which is what they done.
Yeah, and Anthony, in your report, you mentioned quite clearly that, and we saw like Slovenia hitting Ireland on the counter back in the previous window. This time, Greece seemed to maybe look for those spaces and try to go direct, as you kind of pointed out.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, when Ireland, that was a glaring weakness in how Ireland played in Slovenia, so that's inevitable. Like an opposition team, they would have looked at that game and tried to identify where they could hurt Ireland. So that's how they tried to do it. And they didn't have, I mean, they didn't score obviously, but they had moments. There was the Ireland that were kind of scrambling a little bit at times with that direct ball and down the channels and over the top. They've got some quick players and some good players. I thought Greece were very good in the first half. I think the difference was that Ireland didn't concede. I thought Jessie Stapleton, I know Rachel has been speaking her up a lot and said last week she's a future captain. She played like a future captain on Friday, particularly in the first half. She was really, really good. Defensively, she was good. She reads the game well. She mopped up a lot of ball and stuffed out a lot of potentially dangerous moments. But then with the ball, she's great. Like she just punches passes into the middle of the park, breaks lines, really composed and just had real authority about her. Look, Ireland were scrambled a little bit. They looked a little bit stretched at times, but they were generally okay. They didn't play great in the first half, but there wasn't really a chance of note. I know Greece had, as I said, they had some moments, but it wasn't like Ireland were completely on the ropes. And look, they always had another gear or two to go up. And of course, they had Katie McCabe to come off the bench along with Marissa Shiva, who also did really well. Um, and they got the job done. Obviously, the challenge tomorrow now is to do it without Katie because she's not there. She's gone back to Arsenal, suspended because she did get booked in the second half. And I suspect even if she wasn't suspended, I don't think she'd have started. She might not have featured at all because she did slightly aggravate the calf. She strained her calf, and I think Carla Wood said this morning at our press conference that there was a slight reaction to that, so she may not play anyway. But look, this is a chance now for other people to step up and for the team to show that they can live without Katie because she's not always going to be there to drag them out of trouble.
Yeah, and let's listen to Carla Ward, who was speaking about Katie McCabe and also Marissa Shiva and the change in the second half on Friday night. She was speaking to Tony O'Donoghue on pitch side in Crete.
Managers make changes like that and they're as decisive as they were. They get a lot of credit. So you should get some credit, but also the players that came on, Katie and Marissa, obviously helped change the game.
Yeah, listen, I think it's the players that deserve credit. I think I keep saying it, we've not had long on the grass. They're implementing the amount of things we did in the week that have come to life today, particularly in the second half, was great to see. But they've come on, they've made a huge difference. And, just being able to stretch and play with a little bit more intensity allowed us to dominate the game. And I thought the second half was superb.
How worried were you about the first half, though? Because there was a lack of cohesion and the Greeks had a few breaks that must have concerned you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at half time, it was actually a really calm message. It was, just remember what we're going after. We probably weren't looking at the spaces we wanted to. We probably weren't looking to stretch them. I think stretching them, gives you earns the right to play. It drops them off. So we needed to do that a little bit more. And when we did that, increase the tempo on the ball, start to engage them a little bit more. And when we did that, I thought it was much better. And I think they deserve an awful lot of credit because they're, we've had 7 tactical sessions with the group, and you got to take your hat off to the players because they're delivering, they're listening, they're putting it into practice, and yeah, second half was superb today.
Carla Ward there on the second half performance, which she says there was superb. And obviously, as you said, Rachel, the halftime substitutions made the big difference. Does it point somewhat to an over reliance on Katie McCabe? Obviously, she's a brilliant player and all that, or do you feel it was more kind of subtle tweaks and it just, obviously McCabe's influence then helps with that on top of it as well?
Yeah, look, I think in games like this, you just get in a half time and the game will naturally get better anyway when you kind of regroup. So sometimes a lot of the focus is on the players who've come on, but I think even if you hadn't have made change at half time, it probably would have improved. I don't think it would have improved as much as it did with Katie coming on. I mean, Katie's our world-class player. She's making a difference in a lot of teams. So you did, I think, Katie gets sometimes a lot of negativity online. And I think by her standards, she does kind of have mixed performances for Ireland. But I think the one thing you can never deny is Katie's presence on the pitch. When she's there and when she's not there. So look, we are obviously reliant on her, but she's our best player. You're obviously going to rely on your best player. But yeah, look, it's obviously something that we can't overly rely on. Don't have her now on Tuesday, but I think it's nearly more her presence that we miss on the pitch. So looks kind of got us out of jail a bit on Friday, but I think it looks to the 11 now who are starting the game. We've got out of jail a little bit, but it's from minute 1 now. We need to perform.
Yeah, even her impact. I know, the ball in for Leanne Kiernan for the second goal. That's the bit that'll be the headline. But what I really liked was, the quick feet before that as well.
Yeah, it wasn't even really quick or skillful. It was just her awareness of where them players were, and she just pushed the ball into space. It wasn't even, a really good drag back or a step over or anything like that. It was just her awareness. But yeah, to do that and then it's the ball. I mean, she puts it right on Leanne Kiernan's foot. It's literally perfect. And then obviously the keeper saves it and Caruso does well then to follow up. But yeah, look, she's obviously a big player, but she'd be a big player for anyone, obviously without her now on Tuesday. So we can't be relying on her to come on and change the game.
Yeah, because Anthony, just even in terms of the presence that Rachel was talking about there, in terms of Katie, I think Emma Duffy, in her analysis of it on the 42, was kind of pointing out that even on the the TV microphones, you can actually hear her. That this is before she came on in the first half, kind of shouting, "Keep it, keep it, keep it." So she's a presence in many ways beyond just obviously on the pitch as well.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, she's the captain. She will lift the players around her, just her ability and her force of personality. But I think as well, as Rachel alludes to there, it's what she does to the other team. If you're Greece and you've done really well for 45 minutes and worked very hard to keep Ireland out, and you come out for the second half and you see Kate McCabe warming up. Before the ball's even tipped off, your heart sinks. And I just thought literally from the tip off, Ireland looked like a different team, and they looked like a different team, actually. I think they sort of got cowed a little. Ireland, the intensity and their press and everything was much more on point. They were much more cohesive and aggressive in how they went after Greece. But yeah, Kate McCabe is a genuinely world-class player. I think concerned the fact that she did play 45 minutes on Friday and how she came out with that and did it potentially damage the calf a little more. I don't think that's the case. I think this is she's suspended anyway. But I think there's a little reaction, but I think she'll be okay. But Yeah, that's what she does, Raf, not just to her own team and to the players around her, but to the opposition. Like she just attracts so much attention. And you said it yourself, like that goal, like the reason she dances past two players is because two players go to press her. I don't think they do that to any other player. Maybe Denise O'Sullivan, but it's just that respect. Like it takes two to try and get the ball off her, and when she goes past them, that's two players out of the game. It's just bends in a peach of a cross. Like so, brilliant goal. Like so yeah, look, she'll be missed tomorrow, but as I said, it's an opportunity for the players now to get the job done, and there should be enough in that Ireland squad to do the job tomorrow against Greece, who were good for the first half, but still, this is a team 35 places below us in the rankings. The limitations became more obvious the longer the game went on, and when Ireland lifted the intensity levels and the pace and the tempo of the match. So hopefully, we see another victory tomorrow, and that will send them well into the May and June.
Yeah, and one of the people who did put a hand up obviously was the player of the match, Jesse Stapleton, your former teammate, Rachel. And, as Anthony said there, probably a future captain in the making, but still very, very young. Like you've seen her when she was kind of coming through at Shells and establishing herself. Obviously, she's got a very high ceiling, but you just tell us about maybe I suppose, the roots of that kind of high ceiling that we can see and how you saw her sort of progress as she came through at Shells.
Yeah, so I actually coached Jessie when she was under 15 for the Leinster schools team, and I just spotted her straight away. I was like, this girl is something special. And look, she had been spotted well before that. And then she came to Shelbourne at 16, and then genuinely by the age of 17 in her second year, like we looked at her as a senior player in our dressing room. The way she spoke, the way she conducted herself, how she trained, how she played, everything was just, she was just way beyond her years. She was so professional. She was, performing one of our best players every week. You could rely on her, and not very often can you rely on a 16, 17 year old. So, and look, we spoke a long time now about Jessie's potential and Jessie being one for the future, but I think it's now. Like I think she's shown what she can do. And like Anthony was saying, there wasn't a whole lot to do, but she sniffed out every bit of danger. She was in the right positions. I've seen her scoring a few headers that wasn't, a one-off. She's done it plenty of times. You can see how good she is on the ball. And look, give her a few more games if she can perform this way consistently in the next 3 or 4 games. I see her being the starting centre half, and I don't see anyone else being able to take it off her for many, many years.
Yeah, she's also played at six before international level. So you feel her future is very much centre back rather than in that sort of role, sort of as the anchor or shielding the back four.
Yeah, like Eileen would have played her in midfield, but I just think at this level, I don't think she gets away with playing midfield. You can see like she's probably not the most mobile player or agility player, but she's a centre half. She can, you can read the game a bit easier. You can kind of step onto the ball and you're not getting probably twisting and torn as much. So I think at this level she's centre half. I think she's done well when she played midfield, but I just think her position is centre half.
Yeah, and then speaking of the centre backs as well, what have you made of Caitlin Hayes's, I suppose, position within the squad? She's obviously still very much part of Carla Ward's plans overall, given she's been called up every time, but she hasn't been starting in a way that under Eileen she was very much, very core to that, that back line, whether it was in the shape of a three or a four.
Yeah, and like that's the thing about football. It's what the manager thinks. It's what she wants or what she thinks is best. So you can be, go from starting every week under Eileen, and then a new manager comes in and it's a fresh start for everyone. And I'm sure it's tough for her to take. And she's got a new move now to Brighton, so it's obviously probably thought, this is gonna, spring me on further, but it hasn't really done that way. And I think, to be fair, like Jessie's come in and done really well. She's waited for her time under Carla, and a Patton hasn't done anything to get herself out of the team. So it's probably going to be a bit of a waiting game now for Caitlin, that it's going to be maybe an injury or someone's going to have to play bad for a couple of games for her to get back in. So I think she's only played maybe 5 minutes. She came on against Turkey for 5 minutes, the last five. Megan Campbell got injured. So look, I don't think it's a case where Carla doesn't really rate her. I just think at the moment, playing with a back four, that Jessie Stapleton and Anna Patton just seem to be the two in favour at the moment.
Yeah, and this was addressed in the press conference today, wasn't it, Anthony? Just in terms of the fact that Carla Ward does rate Caitlin Hayes, but it's just, I think she brought up the competition and she did name check a lot of those players as well.
Yeah, she said everything that Rachel's just touched on there, to be honest. Even back to where do you play Jessie Stable, and that came up, like, what do you think's her best position? She said, look, I just think she's best with the game in front of her. It suits her very best qualities to see the game unfold ahead of her. And with Caitlin Hayes, she is unlucky. Like she didn't do anything wrong in the green jersey. I think she was actually one of the best, most consistent performers under Eileen Gleeson, and also like very good at set pieces in both boxes. Worth chipping in with a goal or two. But as Rachel said, what Carla Ward said was this is the area of the pitch that she has the most options and where the competition for places is most intense. It's sometimes that happens. I think with the men's team, we've had it in the fullback areas before. I think Ireland could probably do another attacking threat, maybe like a free scoring striker. But as it happens, we just have a lot of good centre halves. Don't forget, Louise Quinn still hasn't come back. So look, it's just the way it goes. As she said, she's spoken to Caitlin Hayes and explained to her, maybe what she has to do. And I guess a run of games with Brighton will help her for sure. But as Rachel says, at the minute, this just seems the preferred partnership for Carla Ward, and it is going to be difficult to dislodge that partnership because they looked very, very comfortable on Friday afternoon. Sorry.
Yeah, and also I suppose the fact that Carla Ward, Rachel really wants to have a left footer on the other side, as in Megan Campbell ideally would be playing on as the left centre back, and I think the only reason it didn't happen the other day was because of obviously the Katie McCabe injury and then the reshuffle, but that also maybe squeezes that space at times.
Yeah, well, look, we'll have to wait and see till everyone's fit, where Katie's in the team and Megan Campbell's in the team, where, what is her actual preferred backline. But I mean, it is hard to play left sided centre half when you're not left footed. But Jessie didn't make it look difficult. She made it look quite easy. So it's only difficult if you can't do it. But I don't think Jessie's really limited in her range of pass and that she can't pick a pass out if she's being put under pressure. So look, we wait and see when everyone's back fit, when Katie's available, Megan's available, what she goes with. But I don't think Jessie's done anything wrong in that position to take herself out of the team.
Yeah, and the match tomorrow, just details on that in terms of coverage, RT2 and the RT Player from 7 o'clock. That's when the coverage starts. And then also live commentary on RT2 FM on a specially extended game on, which kicks off from 6 p.m. And there will be changes, and some of those will be enforced now because Kira Carusa has a quad injury, Rachel. So how do you expect that front line to look? Because I think before the news emerged today, it was sort of like who's going to play alongside Carusa, and Leanne Kiernan did it to good effect, albeit sometimes I think there was some frustration evident in the first half. But Amber Barrett then went and scored when she came on later on, and she had a brilliant interview last week with Tony where she kind of talked about her frustrations and how she channels that. So it's going to be interesting now how the makeup of that front line looks on Tuesday.
Yeah, look, I think it might have changed anyway. I think Caruso would have started. I mean, you can't start, score a goal, and then drop your centre forward. But obviously she picked up an injury now. I'd imagine Amber Barrett will just go straight into that central striker role. I thought Leanne Kiernan maybe. I don't know if she is a winger, to be honest. I think she could be more of a centre forward as well. She was taken off after 60 minutes, so whether she looks to get Heather Pyne back in, she's obviously had an injury. I from what I've heard, she's fit to play tomorrow, but we wait and see. She's obviously going to want to get Heather back in if she's her starting right winger. Lucy Quinn again, she's done okay. I'd imagine maybe could be Katie when she's fit if she had played in that forward role. But it's probably, look, you obviously don't really change your back line anyway. But I think the front line could look different to last week. I think Leanne maybe could be potentially replaced by either Heather Pyne, maybe Abby Larkin. Lucy Quinn maybe could be Abby Larkin on one side, or Emily Murphy, who came on and done well as well. So I think obviously Amber Barrett will go straight in, and then I think the other two positions are probably 50-50 if they're going to change.
Yeah, was there any indication, Anthony, from the press conference today? I mean, did Carla sort of show her cards a little bit?
No, not really. I mean, she praised Amber Barrett. Obviously, came on, got her goal, which is great on her 50th cap, and she did say that Saoirse Noonan has trained very well this week. Yeah, I'd go along with Rachel. I'd expect Amber Barrett to be straight swap between herself and Kira Carusa, and I would think that we'll see Saoirse Noonan at some stage, depending on how the game is going. And then beyond that, yeah, exactly. Again, to echo what Rachel's saying, but we have got some pace in reserve in the likes of Abby Larkin and Leanne Kiernan, and I think they probably need that or will need that tomorrow because Greece will come out and be really difficult. One thing that Carla Ward did say actually, that like when they looked at Greece in the 3 previous games they played before Friday, they had 3 different setups. And then they set up in a different way again on Friday. So they kind of caught Ireland off guard. I think they probably pressed them higher than they anticipated. So I think tomorrow evening you might see them play in a lower block. and try to hold out, particularly without Caruso and KDMK. They might think, you know what, like there could be a lack of creativity here. They're missing a couple of their main threats creatively. And in that instance, what you want is people who will get chalk on their boots, get wide, overlapping runs. Heather Payne, another one that can do that. Try and get in behind them, try and stretch them in the wide areas to just open up little cracks. So I think it might be another evening where patience is required. But as I've said earlier, I expect Ireland to have enough to get the job done.
Yeah, and I suppose the wider squad finally, Rachel, you've another one of your Shells teammates who's gone in as well. So that's what's good news from the club's point of view.
Yeah, look, not even the club, the league as well. We kind of always speak about how great it is to have League of Ireland players in. So we've three in there at the moment. Alex was obviously a late call up, and I actually think, Alex kind of battled with an injury over the last few weeks, and she would have been in to start with. Carla had mentioned that there was another player who only just missed out from injury, and I think that was probably Alex now looking at her getting called in. So look, it's great for Alex. I mean, our last cap, she was 17. I think it was like 9 years ago. So like she's obviously developed a whole load in that 9 years. Carla has spoke so highly of her. She's come to see her play in the President's Cup, was really impressed. And then obviously Alex has kind of, been in and out of teams for us. She's struggled with an injury, but she seems to be really impressed by Alex. Alex is a great player to have, if you have loads of possession, like that kind of really creative player. So Greece could be a really good game for her to play. The only thing is, she's gone in quite late. Has she had a lot of time to impress? Probably not. They probably had trained Sundays, probably more light of a session, and then today was obviously probably a really tactical session, so probably not a whole lot of time to go in and really make her mark on the squad. But look, it's great for Shells. Obviously it's great for the league that we've three players in there now. I don't remember the last time we had three players in there, so look, it's great for Carla to keep an eye on the league. And obviously Alex is one for, she has her sights on, and we'll obviously keep looking at in the future as well in their games.
Yeah, and I suppose finally, before I let you all go, I suppose you're back in action away at Bowes on Saturday, and I think we've spoken already about the fact that Bowes have had a bit of a mixed start with the one impressive display against Wexford that was mentioned in terms of the young players and the great goals they scored in that. But whereas you're kind of right in the early title chase at this point of view, so it's going to be an intriguing match, I suppose, from your point of view.
Yeah, like it's a Dublin derby, so it's always a good game. We've, a lot of the Bowes players would be ex-Shelbourne players, ex-teammates, so it's always that extra bit of pride at stake. But look, they have had a mixed start, but I think that comes with how young of a team they are. They have some really good young players, but obviously every week you kind of get different performances from really young players. But look, I've said it before, we've always had a tough game against Bowes. We've never beaten them easy. We've had draws against them, and it's live on TG4 as well, which always, makes everyone kind of up their game a little bit. So look, we're always expecting a tough game against them, and I think Saturday will be no different.
All right, we'll be keeping an eye on that anyway, and best of luck with that. Rachel and Anthony, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Raf.
Cheers, Raf.
All right, I'm delighted to be joined now by Keith Treacy and Richie Towell to talk about League of Ireland and Champions League. Champions League will hold off for a little while. Obviously, we've got live coverage of that on RTÉ on Wednesday. But Keith and Richie, how are you both?
Oh, good, Raf.
Oh, good, Raf. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, no worries. Good stuff. And obviously, we're going to start with the SSE Airtricity Men's Premier Division. Now, we're going to start with a game where there were no goals, but it was still intriguing nonetheless. So, St. Pat's 0, Shelbourne 0. And Richie, Jamie Lennon comes straight back into the Pats midfield, or at least into the starting 11. He obviously played a few minutes against Waterford last time out, but it meant a very intriguing midfield battle just with the numbers game that Pats and Shells had in there.
Yeah, you could see that Shelbourne were trying to just nullify St. Pat's midfield, and they didn't get the grips with it in the first half. St. Pat's started like a house on fire, they did, and they were probably a little bit unfortunate not to go 1-0 up, because it probably would have made the game a little bit more open and expansive. So Shelbourne, to be fair, they defended in their numbers, they did, and then on the flip side of that, come the second half, Shelbourne were actually the better side, and coming to the latter stages of the games, you probably see where the likes of Jamie Lennon and players like that haven't played as regularly over the last couple of weeks, and you could see they got a little bit tired coming towards the end of the game, and Shelbourne really were coming on strong. So listen, a draw probably at the end of the day was a fair result, even though probably either team weren't too pleased, but they wouldn't have been too gutted either that they came away with a point.
Yeah, and Keith, I know from when you were analysing the game on Virgin, Jake Mulroney's decision making was something that kept coming up. And I suppose as a winger, you might give us a good insight into that, because obviously there's not a huge amount of time on the ball, but still it kind of left a little bit to be desired on that front.
Yeah, I think so often this season he does the hard part really well, and that's the stuff that really gets you because he beats the man, he checks back, and then you think, right, go put it in. He does it, and it's a floaty one to the back stick, or it just fires out, or it's over the bar, and you're thinking, Jake, you have the hard part, just concentrate on the easy bit. But there was one in particular, Raf, when he got the ball on the edge of the 18-yard box, and his first touch was poor, it was under his feet, so he just decided, well, I'll fire this across the box and hope for the best. When you get somebody 1v1 in the 18-yard box and you're a winger, that's success. You've got to go and drive at him. You've got to back him up. I mean, he might do something silly. He might dangle a leg. You might win a penalty. But just because your first touch is poor, go and take the next one forward, back him up, shift it, take a shot. Don't just think, oh, when my first touch was poor, I'm going to fire this across. And look, El Bouzebbi wasn't much better. I think Forrester was quite poor from an attacking point of view as well. And look, what Richie is saying about Jamie Lennon is spot on. I highlighted it on Friday night. I do think that the Pats midfield with Forrester, Kavanagh and Lennon, there's only one person wants to go and win the ball back in that midfield. So when Pats don't have the ball, they can be got at. And there's big holes in the middle of the park when they go forward. Because what Stephen wants to do is, overloads. So they're committing bodies. But when they lose it, there's big gaps. Too big for Jamie Lennon to be able to go and snuff out fires all by himself. So I don't think anybody will not want to play against Pats because, look, they're a very good team with very good wingers, but they also let you play. So there's a little bit of that for my mind, I'd like Pats to just be a little bit more solid, a little bit more together. But I'm sure Stephen would argue that if he did that, you wouldn't get such an attacking side in football. But I think it's a much better point for Damien Duff Shelbourne, given the fact that they were missing Paddy Barrett, they were missing Sean Boyd. I know Aidan Keane was out from a Pat's point of view, but when the champions come to town and you're at home and you want to win the league, you've got to make a bit of a statement. And Pats didn't really make that statement. So I think it's a much better point for Shells.
Now, what Keith is saying, you could see that Shelbourne really, they got to grips with that in the second half. They played Harry Wood on one side of the high box and Ellis Chapman on the other side of the high box. And Jamie Lennon was caught in between no man's land because what Keith said, Pats just go. And if I'm playing against them, I would love that because as soon as the ball's turned over, and as Keith said, Mulroney and El Bouzebbi, they weren't at the races, they weren't, so they kept turning the ball over constantly. And then as soon as Shelbourne got that forced pass through the Pats press, Jamie Lennon was caught in no man's land. They had players on either side of them and they were able to turn and go straight at the Pats back four. On another night, Shelbourne could have nicked it in the end, as I said previously. But to be fair, Keith spot on again. Like, Shelbourne were down numbers. They were down their main man up front. They were down their main man and centre back. They were down Sean Gannon. Pat should have grabbed that game with a scruff of the neck and really went for it, but they didn't, and that could really cost them come the end of the season. Like.
Yeah, and just on the, you mentioned, Keith, that midfield balance. Is it just a personnel thing if you swap one in out without necessarily sacrificing, the attacking intent that they do have?
Yeah, I think, look, Chris Forrester could do it. He could go and stand beside Lennon instead of that 5-10 yards ahead of him. But again, with the game in front of him, I'm not sure Chris would go and, create that sort of pressure, turnovers, mistakes. I don't think that's his type of game. But look, do they have another Jamie Lennon in there? Probably not. But I always think it's the easiest part of the game to run around and try and win the ball back. And if you can tell somebody, just run around, try and win the ball back. And when you do, give it to Chris Forrester. There's a lovely little relationship that can develop there. But if it's only Jamie Lennon running around and getting the ball back and the other lads are thinking, well, I'm not really here for that part of the game. I'll come alive when we have it. I was always told from an early age, if you're not Messi, you're not Ronaldo, you've got to run around. So Forrester's brilliant. Brandon Kavanagh's been absolutely excellent this season. But there's a work rate off the ball that you've got to adhere to. And if you don't, the likes of Shells will come, they'll work you out. Like Richie says, they'll go either side of Lennon and Lennon will be in no man's land. He won't know what to do. So unless one of the centre-halves spring out, which again is dangerous stuff to be doing, I'm not sure what St. Pat's do. But this is why St. Pat's are so exciting to watch, because Stephen Kenny will set up, he will let his wing-backs go, his centre midfielders will go, and they will be exposed if they lose the ball. So it's great, very exciting stuff to watch. But with that style of play, Raf, St. Pat's have to turn up and they have to be on the money. They have to play well. The passing accuracy has to be really, really good. If they come down a few levels, they'll lose a handful of games this season and they won't be able to win the league. So it's a very difficult game plan. It's a risky game plan, but very, very exciting stuff. And by the way, I've realised I'm still sticking with Pats. My early indication was Pats, and I'm happy to stick with it. But it's like a heavyweight boxer. When you go out there and you think, I love watching them, but they are vulnerable as well. So, there's two sides to that same Pats team.
Yeah, a bit like Anthony Joshua or something, I suppose.
Yeah,
But that's not going to be a headline anyway. But look, Richie, I suppose on the other side, as you said, Shells, with all the injuries that they had, there's a structure there, and you can drop in a player like Lewis Temple, who's young, but then ends up being, player of the match as well.
He was excellent. I was really impressed with him. And I actually listened to his interview after the game. He came across really, really well. You can tell he's been brought up by a lovely family. I heard Damien Duff saying he was a black belt in jiu-jitsu or something like that, wherever it was. So you can see he has the discipline there. He has the physical presence. He was excellent on the ball. He was like a proper leader at the back. And you can tell he's going to be an absolute player in time.
Yeah, and of course, top of the table now at Strada United, 2-0 winners over Waterford, Warren Davis and then Darren Markey either side of half time. And as Barry Landy said in his match report on RTÉ.ie, it is fast turning into the Warren Davis show at every Strada United match. He's obviously somebody who came through, I think, at Shamrock Rovers, native of Tala, then did move around a lot of clubs, was part of the Strada squad that won the Cup last year. And this year, Keith, 3 goals and an assist in 8 games. But, you were waxing lyrical about the goal he scored against Shells a few weeks back, but this is a completely different type of goal that shows another side to his game, sort of the fox in the box side.
Yeah, this was just all about anticipation. There's a little bit of head tennis in around the 18-yard box, and it gets hooked over one of the player's shoulders, and there's a bit of a 50-50 ball. You're not sure if Brennan is going to win the header or not, but you can see Warren Davis has a look and he thinks, you know what, I'm going to gamble that he is winning this header. Ryan Brennan wins it, and instead of just heading it anywhere, he just cushions it over the top of that Waterford defence. Warren Davis has gambled, he's in behind, and then he has the composure just to finish it really well. But it was that anticipation of what might happen, where should he go, and you might as well gamble. And when you do gamble, things like that always seem to fall for you. So it was a brilliant header from Ryan Brennan. I thought it was an excellent header. The Darren Markey goal, I thought, was a brilliant goal as well. I know you can have a look at the defending and say it was probably quite poor, the ball into the box, but as a winger, when you're getting brought up, I know Darren's more of a midfielder, an attacking midfielder, but as a winger, when you're crossing in those positions, you're always told, keep your cross on target because it might just end up in the back of the net. So when wingers do that, or a crosser does that and it ends up in the back of the net, I'm always quick to try and pat them on the back because it's something you're always told. It's a basic of the game. Whip it into the far post, but keep it on target, because if the defenders don't deal with it, the keeper's going to be unsighted and it could very easily end up in the back of the net. So that is a wonderful player. I love watching Darren Markey play. And look, Waterford had chances as well. I'm sure Keith Long will be the first to point out that Waterford did have a couple of chances. 1 or 2, Padraig Gammon could have done a little bit better with four losses on the bounce now, Raf. So I'm sure he'll be starting to feel the pressure. But for mine, when there's a couple of teams that are worse place off than Waterford are this season, with Padraig Gammon in the middle of the pitch, they've failed to score in 3 of the last 4 losses, which I'm sure is, having the red flares go up, but I wouldn't be panicking just yet. I'm sure Waterford have enough.
Yeah, they've Shamrock Rovers next, so again, very tough for them. But on Drogheda though, Richie, in terms of this bit of form, and they keep confounding any pre-season expectations. Kevin Doherty was talking about how important the fact that they've switched to full time has been. Obviously, previous to this season, it's been part-time football. They've done very well, but especially crucially in a season where they're going to be playing European football as well at some time in the summer, that switch to full-time football is paying a huge amount of dividends. It'll be key for them.
Yeah, of course. Do you know what? The timing of it has worked out perfectly as well. Obviously, they're off the back of winning the FAI Cup, and the confidence, not just in the players, but throughout the whole club. You can see that the club have backed Kevin Doherty and they're giving him the funds to go out and get the players that he's wanted. And it's brilliant, that, because obviously you see them going full time and they're getting their just rewards now. You can see the performances that they're putting in the pitch. They're not conceding many goals, they're scoring goals. They're very, very similar to a Galway they are, where they're very solid at the back. They look like they're a real together team. They get the ball into the box at any opportunity they can, whether it be from deep free kicks, whether it be from long throw-ins, whether corner kicks, everything goes into the box. They fight for it. Lua is an absolute handful up front for them, and then with the likes of the quality from Markey coming from behind them and Warren Davis, he's been an absolute joy to watch. And I think you see the variety of the goals that he's getting as well. The one against Shells, he's really harrying the Shelbourne defence, takes it off and sticks it in the top corner. And then the one on Friday night, he's really just like that fox in the box waiting, timing his run off the shoulder, and it's a great finish again. So listen, Drogheda will be absolutely delighted with their start, and who's going to see them slowing down? Because even when they played Shamrock Rovers, who'll be one of the favourites to win the league, they pushed them all the way, only for in 94th minute penalty save. They would have came away with a draw in that game as well. So I think anybody who's going to go and play against Drogheda this season, they're going to be in for an absolute nightmare of a game.
Yeah, and you mentioned Galway United in terms of what they bring to the table. Now, they lost 1-0 at home to Shamrock Rovers, Rory Gaffney with the goal, and it was sort of a turning of tables here, Richie, in terms of the way the goal that Rovers scored would be kind of the type of goal that Galway love to score.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. It's a ball into the box, and that's what modern football now has kind of gone away from that, hasn't it? Where everybody wants to recycle the ball and make it go side to side and then penetrate through the lines, where you see the teams that are kind of have a little bit of a throwback, where the Galway Uniteds and the Droghedas, and they're getting the ball into the box. When you get the ball into the box, like, let's be realistic, these are not Premier League defenders, they're not Premier League goalkeepers. There is mistakes, they're only human beings, so mistakes are going to be made, and you see that the Galway keeper makes a mistake and Rory Gaffney is there to tap it in. So I think you'll see a little bit more of a trend of teams getting the ball into the box a lot more. I know going back a couple of months ago, even last season, it was getting to the byline and cutbacks. That was the big one that people wanted to do. But I think you can see now, if you get the ball into the box, it can cause real problems. It can, and more teams will probably start going down that road. Like.
Yeah, and just in terms of the Rovers, the minutes that players are getting, so I suppose Jack Byrne getting 7 minutes there as well, so he's having his time managed. But Gaffney himself, who of course you've played with both of these lads as well, his minutes have been ticking up and up and up. 68 minutes there, and obviously a goal thrown in there for good measure as well. But obviously the ring managed nicely at this stage of the season.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm absolutely delighted to see Rory Gaffney first and foremost back on the pitch, and then obviously to get his goal down in Galway as well. I'm sure he had a rake load of people down watching him. He had a really, really tough year last year. Rafi had a problem with his knee, and then when he came back, he had problems with his Achilles. I know then he just decided to have some surgery halfway through the season, which ruled him out for the rest of the season, and he was absolutely devastated about that. He was commuting back and forward from Galway up to do his rehab, and I know it was a really tough year for me. He was only after having a young child as well, so I can only imagine that the emotions was all over the place. So to see a player, and especially at his age, I think he might be 35 or 36 now. So to see a player like that come back and get his just rewards is absolutely amazing, because I know the type of person he is and I know how hard he works. So to see him get his rewards, that's what you want to see in football.
Yeah, and Gaffney was speaking to the Mirror after the game, and he said everyone likes to talk about our slow starts, but it's not slow this year. If we play our game in hand and win it, we're 1 point off the top. Historically, we do finish the season strong, so I'd be worried if I was any of the other teams. Keith, that's a bit of a gauntlet thrown down there.
Yeah, it's fighting talk, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fighting talk, yeah.
And to be honest, like I generally hang around saying Pats fans or Shell fans or Bows fans, given where I live, my locality, but not an awful lot of people are mentioning Shamrock Rovers for the title for me, and that must be an absolute slap in the face, given how dominant they've been over the last number of years. I know Shelbourne are the champions at the minute, but still, to be so dominant, still have the large bulk of those players together, for people to be saying, I don't fancy Shamrock Rovers this season, they should take that as a real insult, and they should be thinking, you know what, this is fuel for our fire. Just like Drogheda, everybody was tipping them for relegation. You know, Ryan Brennan came out and said, we use that as fuel for the fire. I'm sure Shamrock Rovers have brought up a couple of pundits and thought, nobody fancies us, so let's go and prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, we've had fight and talk, black belts, and then Anthony Joshua mentioned as well, so quite a combative podcast today. But I suppose, Keith, as well, from Galway United's point of view, yes, it's a defeat, but Moses Dyer looks a complete handful as well.
Yeah, Dyer's an absolute handful. You just have to look at the 2 goals he scored against Bows last week. The first one, an excellent header. The second one, a brilliant finish. And he has a decent force touch. He can bring people into play. He can threaten in behind. And as we just mentioned, he's not bad in the air. So the one thing Galway really, really lacked last season was a goal scorer. They had all the really difficult to play against, horrible, will win the individual battles, but they just missed that little bit more of a goal threat. For teams to really, really fear them, now they have that goal threat. And I think those tight games where they're coming out with nil-alls or, you know, a 1-0 defeat, they could be coming out with points, 1.3 points. And, you know, I don't think you'll hear John Caulfield mention this, but I think European a race is on the cards for Galway. You know, second full season back in the league, it's mental stuff down there. But it's a very, very high bar they've set. And like I say, it's the opposite of St. Pat's. Nobody wants to play a Galway because, like Richie says, they're a throwback. Every time the ball goes wide, it's going into the box. And by the way, they're not just mindless, you know, when it goes wide, it's getting pumped in. If you step off them, they will bring the ball through the pitch. They will try and play. I've seen them people set up for long throws and them go short and then put the ball into the box. So you do have to keep your wits about you. It's not just lads when it goes wide, get the tin hats on, it's coming in. They will try and play if you give them too much space. So yeah, look, a defeat against Shamrock Rovers, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, especially given it's the first defeat of the season for Galway. It's been largely really, really good stuff there and more than acceptable.
Yeah, and then Derry City 2-1 winners at home to Cork City, and it's a come from behind victory as well. Ronan Boyce with a bit of acrobatics from set piece, and then Michael Duffy standing up his defender and then just lashing it in. But I suppose first, Richie, there where the goals were taking place, there's a new stand behind them, and it looks great, that new north stand.
I know, I scored a couple of goals that end and I ran into it. Looks like a filter side down the end, so it didn't look great. I wish I was playing still now that I could score a few goals and give that fans a bit of stick. No, but it's great to see. Derry's a great footballing city it is, and to see them have a proper stadium because they deserve it. They do. Derry have been a mainstay at the top end of the league for years and years. They've won FAI Cups over the last couple of years as well. So, and they're very passionate people up there. Every time we go up there, it's a great game. The fans are engaged. They're giving you a bit of stick. They're cheering their own fans on. Or they're cheering their own players on. So it's a great place to play. And I was very critical of Derry City at the start of the season. They had a really, really poor start and didn't really look like they were going anywhere. But you see over the last couple of weeks, like I think they're only 3 points off second place now. So for me being that critical of them, that they've had a really bad start, if they win their next game, they'll probably go second place. So Tiernan Lynch is slowly getting the motor running on them, and I think over the next couple of weeks they could be a real force to reckon with as well, because as we said, like they have the players in the building. They do, players who have been there and done it. So if he gets them firing on all cylinders, they're going to be a force to reckon with, especially when you have the likes of Michael Duffy, the form he's in. Like, I'd be really fearful if he gets injured this season for him, because anything good that's come through Derry City, he's been at the heart of it. Like,
yeah, he has 5 goals in 8 games so far this season and scored all but 2 of the goals they've scored this season. And one of those was a penalty by Hooban early on in the season. And then obviously that Boyce goal there at the weekend as well. But Keith, I suppose what will please Tiernan Lynch most is, you know, the first thing the North Stand sees is a free header for Kit Nelson and they fall behind. But then the response, like the amount of chances they did create, like the only probably thing that was missing, that it was that sort of composure in front of goal for the most part until they did get those goals in the second half.
Yeah, they had a lot of chances, and like you say, Raf, it was a really good reaction from Derry, because once Benny Couto gets to the byline, you see the Nelson header, you're thinking, oh, which way is this going to go? This could fall really flat now in a minute. But they made some chances. Treacy in the goal made an unbelievable save from Pyne. It was he makes a save from a header that he parries down, and then Pyne is onto it in a flash, and he's about 4 yards out. He tries to fire it into the bottom corner. Treacy makes a brilliant double save. He made another save when, again, it's Patterson in the 6-yard box. He turns and hits it. It's another wonderful save. So Derry were knocking on the door, and you were thinking, is this going to be one of these days for Derry where they do everything but score? And again, a little bit of head tennis in the box, and Ronan Boyce comes up with a bicycle kick out of nowhere, or an overhead kick. He does really well to finish it off. And the Michael Duffy goal, I'm sure that will really get to Tim Clancy, because Michael Duffy doesn't have to do an awful lot. He picks up the ball on the edge of the 18-yard box, just shifts it out of his feet and kicks it. And it's fairly down the middle as well. Treacy should probably do a little bit better. I think it's just the pace of the shot that beats him. But look, I think Derry were full value for the win. It was a long trip for Cork going up to Derry. Big trip, that one. But yeah, look, Derry probably I would call it an average start. I still, like Richie, I look at them and think the results up to now have been okay. But Michael Duffy is really the only one who can threaten in behind. And the stats that you've just rattled off, Raf, everything seems to be coming through Michael Duffy. So it doesn't take Einstein to think that if you can nullify Michael Duffy, you will nullify most of what this Derry team can do. So they seem a little bit one-dimensional at the minute. Of course, that can change if Tiernan Lynch starts trying some other things. But at the minute, it's okay from Derry. But I'm not looking at them thinking, do you know what, these are in a title race. They don't quite look like that at the minute. But as I say, the points return has been absolutely fine. And Cork, Yeah, look, absolutely fine. I'm sure Tim Clancy will say we could have had more points on the board. There's been some games that they've been unlucky in, but a decent start from Cork also.
Yeah, they've lost. The one thing Cork season could even be better though, because they've lost a load of points from winning positions as well, including at Derry City as well. But the big worry they'll have, and it was something Tim Clancy referenced after the game, was Rory Keaton getting stretchered off with an apparent knee injury, which will be a worry. And he said we'll get Rory scanned, and hopefully we're wrong. But the early diagnosis, it's probably a bad one. We might not see him again this season, but we'll have to find out. So nothing confirmed on that front. But if they were to lose him, Richie, that's going to be a huge blow, considering also Shawnee Maguire isn't back for another few weeks.
Yeah, and not to be bad at that, but to be relying on Shawnee for a full season is probably not the best thing either, because over the last couple of seasons he's been kind of known to break down. Listen, he's one of them players who's really explosive, really quick, really sharp, and that's sometimes, I know he struggles with his hamstrings, he does, so that's going to be really hard for Tim Clancy if he's missing him and Rudy Keaton, because they kind of put all the eggs in one basket when they were getting them to win. I'm sure a big chunk of that budget went on them too. So if they're missing both of them for a number of weeks, I don't know where the goals are going to come for Cork City.
Yeah, and Bows also have been in poor form at certain points of the season, but they did, in a very topsy-turvy game, beat Sligo Rovers 4-2. But, Keith, it's a bit early to be talking about relegation six-pointers, but, at the point of where they were, they were the bottom two before the game kicked off. But with both of them starting quite slowly. But I think Bowes probably would be quite pleased in the end, even though they did show some vulnerabilities in letting Sligo come back when they'd scored those first two like really, really early goals.
Yeah, this was a mental opening, 25, 30 minutes to this game. The wheeling goal comes within 3 minutes, and it's a decent finish from him. The free kick from the void, I think the goalkeeper can do a little bit better. He's probably taken a little bit by surprise. Take nothing away from the wheeling finish. The finish with the outside of his right foot when he doesn't finish with the inside of his left. It was difficult technique, and if I was on that pitch and he put that over the bar, I'd give him an absolute earful, but he managed to put it in. So fair play to him. And then the Ross Tierney goal comes 4 minutes and 30 seconds into the game. So Sligo are 2-0 down within 5 minutes. Well, I mean, John Russell must be thinking, what's the point in having a team talk? Because I guarantee he didn't say, let's be nice and open and expansive and give Bows the 2-0 head start in the game. And then in the 7th minute, Raf, I know I'm giving timestamps here, but this is how unbelievable this was. The Voy had a chance, and again, the keeper made a decent save. They could have been 3-0 down within 7 minutes. And from that one, they go up the pitch and Owen Elding has a volley at the back, and he could have easily could have scored for Sligo. So we're talking within the first 9 minutes of this game, it could have easily been 3-1, but it was 2-0 to Bows. And look, Lomboto gets released through, and he makes it 2-1 in the end, and Owen Elding goes through. I'm not sure what Charaska's doing in the Bows goal. He just marches out into no man's land and makes Owen Elding's mind up for him easy. Just goes past him. It's an easy finish. Then Tierney ends up making it 3-2. Again, it's a wonderful goal, wonderful finish from him. The Devoy lob is wonderful. To see the goalkeeper off his line, we've all seen that and thought, we panic, or you pull it to the left, or you overhit it. To just get the pitching wedge out, keep that composure, and just play it over the goalkeeper's head. It was a lovely, lovely finish. And this is what's really starting to get to me, Raph. I look at those front lads they have, and I'm not talking about Mousset when I say the front lads. I'm talking about the likes of Tierney, Devoy. They have enough in that front line to go and worry anybody. But defensively, they're so all over the place. The likes of Flores, they should be doing more. Cornwall, when I seen Cornwall in the Aviva, the opening game of the season, I thought, what a centre-half this boy is. This fella's going to be brilliant. Can't wait to see more of him, but he's letting the ball bounce. He's not doing the basics of the game. And look, it's not just him. It's the whole host of the defenders there. They're just not doing the basics right. So I'm sure the management will be saying, Reynolds will be saying, if we do the basics, if we defend better, we have the weapons up the top of the pitch to hurt people. But we look like we can't stop conceding goals. So I like what I see from Bows going forward. I'm sometimes shocked by what I see with them going backwards, but yeah, it's I don't like what I see from Sligo, Raf. They're in games, they're competitive, but they just keep coming out the wrong side of those. And the more times you do that, we sit here and we say winning is a habit, losing becomes a habit very, very quickly. And Sligo seem to be getting onto that losing habit.
Yeah, like last season, Sligo did kind of start quite poorly, and then mid-season they seemed to pick up. Keith, I mean, do you see any signs this season so far that that might happen, and then that they'll kind of push away from the bottom because you can easily get cut adrift. Now they're not adrift by any means; they're only 3 points, 3 points off the team above them, but. The signs aren't necessarily good, especially defensively. I think they do score goals. That's the one thing that they do seem to have.
Yeah, that's it, Raf. That's exactly what will be getting said in the Sligo dressing room. We need to be more, more rigid. We need to start trying to keep clean sheets because going away to Bows and scoring 2 goals, that should be enough to win you the game. You should be conceding one or having a clean sheet. You score 2 goals, you win the game away from home. That used to be the old school thing. Now it's like, oh, well, you score, we score, you have a chance, we have a chance. It can't be like that for Sligo. They have to stink the place out in terms of what the opposition are doing. Don't let them play. Make it really, really difficult and go and nick one at the top end. Owen Eldon looks like somebody who might have a few goals in him. Will it be enough to keep them in the league? I'm not too sure. Lamboto looks like he's a handful. He looks a little bit raw. He's all arms and all legs. Quick, he can be released. But his finish doesn't, his finishing doesn't, you think he'll get double figures this season. I think he'll miss an awful lot more opportunities than he finishes. So, look, I think it's all about clean sheets for Sligo. I think they can nick the odd game here or there, but this league is already proven that everybody's capable of beating everybody. So if Sligo keep coming out the wrong end of games, that will seep into the dressing room very, very quickly. So John Russell will have to get a hold of them and just keep them confident, although there isn't an awful lot of reasons to be confident.
Yeah, and then on the Bows side, Richie, I suppose going back to Ross Tierney and Devoy as well, is there a structure that you look at Bows that might be able to get those two sort of linking up as well as they did against Sligo, but but with a structure that also means they're not so open at the back? Because the amount of space that Lombodo had for his run, and then also Owen Elding, it was, especially when they're 2-0 up and you think you managed the game there, it was kind of weird to see the amount of space in behind.
Yeah, they're probably in a little bit of a similar situation to St. Pat's, where Pats have that player. They have Jamie Lennon there that does that doggy walk. Now, you would think with getting Keith Buckley back in there, they've tried him at the base, they've tried Niall Morahan at the base, they've tried Brian McManus at the base, they've tried a lot of the players there, and it just doesn't seem to click. I know that they're trying to put a 2 at the base now, so they're trying to have Morahan and Devoy, but you kind of lose that creativity going forward with having him a little bit deeper. And you seen Devoy on Friday night, like he was at the heart of everything, and it was great to see because getting a player like him and Ross Tierney back into the league was a real boost. And let's be realistic, they haven't hit the heights this season that we all thought they would have. So to see him being at the heart of everything, like you even see his finish at the end, like he's pressing people in the 95th minute. That's exactly what the Bohemian fans would want to see, that dogged energy to go and press people in the last minute of the game. And like that, as we said, like these are not Premier League defenders. They'll make mistakes. The keeper's miles off his line, and he has the ability then to go and chip him. But going back to Alan Reynolds, he'll be absolutely delighted with the win, because first and foremost, if you're Sligo, being 2-0 down after 4 minutes is crazy, especially at the Dalymount. Like, the last thing I'm sure John Russell would have said was keep it really tight, and the Bohemian fans will start getting on their backs, because let's be realistic, it's a really intimidating place to go, and the Bohemians players haven't really responded well to the home games over the last couple of weeks. And if Sligo had kept it really tight, got to half time, you never know what could happen in the second half. But they didn't even get off the bus in the first 10 minutes, which is absolutely crazy, especially in the position that they're in. Like, so John Russell will be absolutely devastated, and on the flip side, Alan Reynolds will be delighted with that win, because let's be realistic, they really needed it.
Yeah, and then this Friday, the fixtures are Cork City against St. Pat's, Shells against Bows, Derry City against Drogheda United, Shamrock Rovers against Waterford, and then Saturday, Sligo Rovers will look to try and rebuild when they host Galway United in a Connacht derby there. I suppose, Keith, what jumps out to you for this weekend coming?
I like Shells Bows, another Dublin derby. They just seem to keep rolling around every week. Seems to be a Dublin derby, but given how the win that Bows have got and the draw that Shells have got, I think Shells will feel they need to pick up 3 points being at home, and Bows obviously feeling that little bit of confidence, as I say, with Devoy, with Tierney. They have the weapons to go and hurt anybody, so I think that'll be a decent game.
Yeah, and Richie, what's catching your eye there?
Yeah, I like the Bows and Shells game as well. Like, they'd be really, really fiery affairs they do. So I might try and nip over to watch that, because let's be realistic, when you're there and you're in the atmosphere, it's a lot better. It is.
Yeah, and of course we're going to finish with the Champions League as well because we've got Aston Villa's trip to face Paris Saint-Germain, which will be live on RT2 and RT Player on Wednesday from 7:30. Before we get to that game, though, Keith, there's the small matter of Arsenal against Real Madrid, the first leg on Tuesday night. Now we were talking about the Opta supercomputer, which seems to have Arsenal as second favourites overall to win the Champions League, just behind Barcelona, but that seems a tad optimistic. I know it's based on all these well, anyway, all these kind of algorithms that we don't see, and there's a lot of
That was
maths and stuff behind it.
that was Keith Jones that himself.
But
I have us in around 4 to win.
but like Arsenal rested key players at Goodison Park on Saturday early afternoon, drew 1-1 with Everton, but and at the same time then Real Madrid lost 2-1 at home to Valencia and also conceded from a corner, which Arsenal like to score from. So maybe there are things that maybe Arsenal could lean on in that game, but we're also talking about this. It's Real Madrid in La Liga is not the same as Real Madrid in the Champions League. I think we all know that from over the years.
Yeah, they're just different animals, aren't they, Raf? And look, it's if this was any other team in Europe, even PSG to a certain degree, I'd be saying, you know what, in London we have to win the game. We just have to. But Real Madrid are so set up to be a counter-attacking team. It's so difficult, and any sidewards or backwards passes, they could cut the ball out on the edge of their own 18-yard box, and in the blink of an eye, the ball could be in your own net. I mean, like Vinicius Junior is absolutely rapid, Mbappe is rapid, Bellingham is not slow, Rodrigo is absolutely lightning. So you've got three lads there that will just be on the fringes, just waiting for any balls they can pick up, and not even balls that they go and win. This could be a floated cross that the goalkeeper comes and wins and just thinks, right, we're going for you now. And they will just play in moments. They will stink the place out. They will take time over throw-ins, take time over corner kicks. But when they see Arsenal's jugular, which I do think they will see over time with Gabriel missing, Gabriel is a huge miss for Arsenal. Gabriel and Saliba are probably, for my money, the best relationship in the Premier League, the two centre-halves. And I think if you take either one of them out, the other one's going to suffer that little bit. So we're not going to get the best of Saliba because Gabriel is missing. And look, if it's Ben White, if it's Kiwi, or if it's Timber that goes in there, the level is not quite as good. The relationship is not going to be as sound. And when you think of the players they're going to be up against, you need to be really on your game. And yeah, I look at Saka coming back is huge. I give us a much better chance because Saka is back. But then again, with Gabriel out, I'm thinking, oh my God, it gives it with one hand and takes with the other. Rudiger is probably the best centre-half, or one of the best individual centre-halves still going around. So look, Arsenal have lost 5 of the last 6 two-legged ties against Spanish opposition. So it doesn't fill me with an awful lot of confidence. I'm not as confident as the supercomputer, but I think we'll be competitive, Raf. And when you look around, look at the likes of Liverpool, Manchester City, they're all out of the Champions League. PSG, really good. Real Madrid, an excellent team. So to be looking around and there's only Arsenal and Aston Villa left in it, it's brilliant. But do I think somebody said this is Arsenal's most realistic silverware of the season, and it's not very realistic for me.
Well, it's more realistic than the Premier League, I suppose, at this stage, even if Liverpool lost at the weekend. The only thing is, do you think maybe Atletico Madrid definitely would have probably played a low block because that's just who they are, and Arsenal seem to struggle against teams that kind of sit deep. Do you think maybe Real Madrid, as much as they do play on the counter, they are a little bit more open, that maybe it will suit Arsenal that little bit more?
I'm not too sure. This is one of the things I absolutely love about Carlo Ancelotti. He has no ego in his tactics. He will just say, if Arsenal want the ball, let them have the ball. We'll stand in the 18-yard box, and when we win it, Modric will pick it up. You'll have 3 runners that you just won't be able to consume. And if Arsenal want to go and stand on the halfway line and really try and congest the pitch, you'd imagine Mbappe be licking his lips thinking, I'll have a race off any one of you. Rodrigo, Vinicius Junior, the same. And if they go from back to front, Bellingham's engine is so good as well that he'll be back defending and he'll think, well, I'll pick up the second balls as well. So they'll flood areas really quickly. So I wouldn't be surprised. And that's the thing with Real Madrid, Raf. They're more than capable of going toe-to-toe with Arsenal, standing up high up the pitch, going full court press. And they're more than capable of saying, you have the ball and we'll just win this game in a moment. And I think Real Madrid just have so many weapons and so many different ways to win a game of football. And, you can be so comfortable in the 88th minute thinking we've had 70% possession, we've had all the ball, and then in an instant you can lose the game. So, look, I think Arsenal will dominate the ball. I think we'll dominate the game, but I just think Real Madrid have too many weapons, and somebody will get free somewhere, and we will be punished. And look at the Arsenal and Everton game on the weekend, Raf. You look at it, the 1-1 draw with the better opportunities, the better chances, but just don't have that killer touch. And you're going up against Real Madrid, you need a killer touch.
Yeah, and Aston Villa then and PSG, which of course, as I said, is the live game on RTÉ on Wednesday. Obviously, this might actually suit Villa in a way, Richie, given, PSG will be very, very clear favourites. I think they wrapped up the French league title there at the weekend as well, so they do have only one focus now for the rest of the season, and they were brilliant against Liverpool, particularly in that first leg, but still somehow lost. But from a Villa point of view, Unai Emery going back to take on a team that he managed in a previous time, and he has a great record in Europe, perhaps more in the Europa League than the Champions League. But I suppose you wouldn't be counting Villa out of this completely.
Oh, definitely not, especially with the players that you see that Aston Villa have now. Like so Rashford, his pace on the counter attack. Because let's be realistic, PSG are going to dominate the ball. They're going to dominate the ball at Villa Park, and they're going to dominate the ball at their own place as well. So Aston Villa are going to have a game plan. Unai Emery is an unbelievable manager. The job that he's done there since he's had on Aston Villa is absolutely incredible. It is. You see, he kind of gets a raw deal at the other clubs that he's had been at. So it's great to see someone like him who works so hard. You can see how well organised his teams are. And you see the players that he's able to attract as well. Obviously, Asensio, Rashford, Malen. I love watching Morgan Rogers and Jacob Ramsey, having them two players in there with John McGinn as well, and Tielemans. They have a serious squad. So, look, PSG are most definitely going to be favourites. But I think Aston Villa's last away game was against Brighton, who Brighton are no slouches either. And they went and beat them 3-0 comfortably. So, Aston Villa, they'll be quietly confident, even though PSG are favourites probably by a long way. Aston Villa will probably be quite happy with that.
Yeah, and then I suppose the other ties before we go: Bayern Munich against Inter Milan on Tuesday, in Barcelona against Borussia Dortmund. All those first legs, and that's that one. The second one's on the Wednesday. I suppose, Richie, whatever the Opta supercomputer, I didn't check where all the other ones are all ranked at this stage, but the one thing we can say about the Champions League this season, it'll be very, very hard to call. There isn't a huge amount between any of these teams, really.
No, for me, I think the favourites are Real Madrid, just purely because it seems to be their competition. And then second, I'll probably have PSG. So listen, the likes of Bayern Munich, Barcelona, really, really big clubs with a great history, especially in the Champions League. So look, when you look at it, when you take a little step back and look at it from a whole, all the clubs, especially our Barcelona's, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, they'll all be thinking, now we fancy it this year. There's not really one clear definitive team that'll be like, you see years and years gone by where you think, right, Barcelona are definitely going to win it with the team they have, the form they're in. You don't really have that at the moment. Everybody be kind of looking at it, licking their lips, thinking this could be your year. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting over the next couple of weeks to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, and we'll see you on Wednesday as well. As I said, PSG against Aston Villa live on RT2 and the RTÉ Player. And we'll also have a live blog on the website throughout the night as well. But that's it for this week. We'll be back next Monday. Remember, you can watch Ireland against Greece on RT2 and RTÉ Player, or listen to live commentary on RT2 FM all on Tuesday evening. But Keith and Richie, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Raf.